Mr. Bolduin, when you got the invitation from Jacqueline Wagenstein to be in the international jury of Cine Libre, and why you actually accepted it?
Honestly, there's a lot of reasons. I don't do a lot of festivals. I never do festivals unless I have a film in the competition. So I've never, only one other time was I on the jury, and that was because the festival was in my hometown in Santa Barbara. So I lived there, and the festival wanted to use Hollywood people that lived in the community to make it easy to be the judges. This time, you know, we had no work in 20 because of COVID, no work in 21 because of COVID, and now we have the writer's strike and the Screen Actors Guild strike. So it's been so quiet that I was very excited to come to the region. I've worked in Bucharest, I've worked in Belgrade, I've worked in Pristina, I've worked in Tirana, and for a chance to come to Sofia, I feel like it's becoming my, the whole Balkan region is becoming sort of my home away from home. Much like Canada did for many years. I made many films in Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, you know, and I've made many projects here now. So it's, I'm comfortable here. I like it for many reasons. It's an amazing place.
And you're here also to shoot a new movie. Can you please tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, it's a film that's shot in Tirana and New York and now shooting here. It's called My Mother is a Cosmonaut, and it's about it's an interesting political piece, not super heavy-handed, but about the trials and tribulations and the extent that people would go to escape communism, to flee communism.
When it comes to choosing the best movie tonight, what are your criteria?
Well, a lot of the obvious things, production design, art direction, costume, locations, casting, acting, cinematography, lighting, scoring, soundtrack, you know, a lot of different reasons. But when it came to my final decision, one of the reasons I was torn between, quite frankly, 4 or 5 films, but I narrowed it down to 3. And one of them I was giving credit for because of the profound and powerful subject matter. So I thought that was the reason that I was going to vote for it. And then another one was really dark, and it was not uplifting, but it was very unique and very original and very different. This other film that was powerful is a story that was told many times, and it was told, again, incredibly. This other film, I'd never seen a film like it, so I didn't know the production value of the one film with the powerful subject matter was just outstanding. The other one had very raw, it was sort of dark, it was kind of negative, but it was very unique and it was very different. So after discussing with the jury, some of the negative aspects that I thought were very heavy and very sad for me, they actually said that's what they felt that way at first, and by the end, it reversed itself, and it's what gave the lead character the power, and it was actually, they saw it in the end as something that was uplifting for someone to be so desperate and so sad and so vulnerable and to have survived, told in a very unique and original setting in a film unlike I've ever seen before. So there was a lot of good films in this. Out of the 10 that I saw, I would say that there was 2 or 3 that could have won, and then there was 2 or 3 that were, you know, a super close second.
So you studied political science. What were your parents' reactions when you decided to pursue an acting career? I know your father was a teacher in politics, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, my brother had already left university and moved to New York to study acting, and he was there for a year and a half, and then he left school because he got onto a soap opera, and that's what gave me, that's how I got bitten by the bug. I got bitten by the bug because my brother was doing it, and I was around him and his friends that were in the business. And so my parents were already used to it by the time I got involved, but they were shocked when he got involved because no one in my family had ever studied acting, had never been in a play. And for my brother, thank you. Do you have no sugar?
Okay.
So by the time I got in the business, it was not, it was still kind of a big deal. My parents were outraged. We're not outraged, they were shocked when my brother left university. He also was a political science major in Washington, D.C. He was heading for law school. After 3 years, not one semester, after 3 years going into his final year, he was like, no law school. I'm going to New York and I am going to take acting classes and I want to have a career in show business. My father was a school teacher making $20,000 a year with 6 kids, and all of a sudden my brother throws 3 years of college out the window, and now he has his dream of becoming an actor and going to Hollywood. Everyone's initial reaction was like a little bit crazy, because my father didn't want my brother to throw all of that effort and all of those years and all of that work and all of that cost. He didn't want him to flush it down the toilet, but my brother proved everybody wrong. He's had truly a magnificent career. Magnificent.
I know that politics is still your passion. And
yes.
Here's one question. If you were president of the United States now, what would be the first thing you would do?
There's 5. It's like asking me what's my favorite movie. There's like, the answer is like 10 different movies. You know, it'd be impossible to pick one over the other. But oddly enough, I think there's one issue that I would address that could answer a lot of other problems. And you would say, oh, it should be climate change, or it should be peace in the Middle East, Russia out of Ukraine. It's none of those things. It's an issue called campaign finance reform. And it's money in politics. And it's what gives an overwhelmingly disproportionate advantage to rich people in America and to corporations in America. And all of the middle class lose, and all of the poor people lose, and women lose, and minorities lose, and everybody loses, because rich people keep putting money into the system. And when they do that, the pharmaceutical company comes in and sits down with Republicans and Democrats with their lawyers, and they write the laws. The drug companies, okay? The tech companies write the laws. The oil companies, they write the laws. They come in with the congressmen and the senators, they give them $100,000 for their campaigns to get reelected, and then they control what happens. I know that's not new to your audience, but if you could eliminate the influence of money in politics, and level the playing field of access and influence, then all of these problems where people say, why do we have homelessness? Why can't we address the problem? Of course we can address the problem of homelessness. If you take money out of politics and you eliminate waste and fraud and corruption from the Defense Department, and you tax rich people and rich corporations properly, we wouldn't have one homeless person in America. I mean, you'd have some, because there are some people that are so, unhealthy. Some people that have addiction problems or mental health problems, they don't want help. But you could eradicate over 90% of the problem of homelessness just by redistributing priorities and taking money out of politics.
Through the years, were you involved in some kind of Hollywood scandal?
Scandal?
Yeah, like typical Hollywood scandal. And do you remember what was the funniest thing that media has written for you?
The biggest scandal of me in Hollywood? There are none. I leave that to my brothers. They get involved with all the scandals. My friend Chaz Palminteri calls, do you know the expression black sheep? Mm-hmm. So when someone's like the troubled member of your family, they're called the black sheep. Yep. And Chaz Palminteri calls me the white sheep, because everybody in my family is a black sheep. He's like, you're the only normal one. Sorry, boys, but that's what Chaz says. He's like, you're the white sheep. So, and the funniest line, hard to say. I haven't done a lot of comedy, but the comedy that I've done has been quite fun. I would have to say, though, I did a film called Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and I had this cameo, and I had a lot of funny lines in that, and my delivery was sort of an impersonation of David Caruso in CSI Miami. He would say, he would have his glasses off and he would say, "Can you say magic bullet theory?" Doing this bad David Caruso impersonation from Miami, from CSI Miami the whole time. I would say, "Can you say Warren Commission?" I just kept doing it. So when I was doing it, it was very over the top, very silly comedy with like Russell Brand. It was like crazy fun comedy. And then after I did what was scripted, I started improvising some very funny lines. And then literally the director off camera yelled a line. They kept the camera rolling. And I would laugh and go, okay, and I'd do that line. And then the script supervisor would yell a line. And I'm like, I've never had the script supervisor throw me a line. I'd say the line, everyone would start laughing. Then the boom operator would have an idea and he just shouted out. I was like, oh my God, that's great. Okay, I'll try that. And so all of a sudden I'm doing a scene where I'm improvising and members of the cast and crew, the hair and makeup and boom operator, the dolly group, everyone's throwing these ideas at me and I'm saying their lines, which was kind of very memorable, some of it very funny. When I was in post-production on that, I was doing my looping, and there's a moment where we're doing an autopsy, and I play the coroner, or I play a detective, and I lift up the blanket and I show my detective partner the body, the nude body of the victim. And it's a comedy. He's had his penis cut off. And when he had his penis cut off, it was thrown out the window and it landed in the snow. And we found his penis in the snow. And I kept saying all through the movie, "Can you say magic bullet theory?" So when I tell her, she says to me, "They found him, his penis was cut off, they found it outside in the snow." And I say, "Can you say Dixicle?" And look at you laughing, you're both laughing. It got one of the biggest laughs, and this was a very funny movie, and it got a very big laugh. It was something we thought of 3 months after the movie wrapped. So yeah, now you know.
Yeah, so your first full-time length movie is born on 4th of July. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us more about that, and were you on audition for your role?
Well, the two amazing things about that film is that we trained for a month in the jungle in the Philippines, and we built a command post with a perimeter and foxholes, and we lived in foxholes in the ground for a month. And we, after a month training with all the actors from LA and New York, with crews and this Vietnam veteran team of consultants and advisors, we got on these helicopters in a clearing in a field, and we flew 2 hours to the north of the Philippines. And I can go on for hours about what the training was like, but we flew for hours up into the north. We landed on the beach. We jumped off the helicopters, hadn't taken a bath in 1 month. And we walked right into the first shot. Oliver was there with 12 cameras on all the helicopters, wide, tight, Tom Cruise, me and 2 other guys. And we landed the helicopters, jumped off straight from the training, didn't go to a hotel, didn't have a shower, didn't have rehearsal, just landed, jumped off the plane and walked into the first scene. It's pretty cool. Love to make another movie like that. And the other thing that's really, really super cool and strange is that when I auditioned for it, there was nobody else in the room. There was no casting, producers, writers. It was just Oliver and I. And Oliver said, "Are you familiar with the subject matter?" And I said, "Not only am I familiar with the subject matter, I know Ron Kovic personally." That's who Tom Cruise portrays in the film. He looked at me sort of incredulously, like kind of smiled. And he's like, "Okay, what's that supposed to mean? Like, how do you know Ron Kovic?" I said, "He's from my hometown. My father was his high school teacher. My father was also his high school football coach. My best friend's father was his high school wrestling coach. And when he was shot and paralyzed in Vietnam, they shipped him from Vietnam to the Bronx, to the Veterans Hospital, where he stayed for a long time. I don't remember how long, but it was a long time, like 2 years. And my father was a Marine, and my father would drive from where we grew up on Long Island, like an hour into the Bronx, and he would read poetry and read novels and read the New York Times and read magazines, keep him updated on what was going on in the world, because he couldn't move very well. He had partial use of his arms, but he was paralyzed from the waist down. And my mother would say, "There's no way you're leaving all of these kids here with me to go to the Bronx to see him. You've got to take some of the kids. You have, you know, take somebody. And my father would take my brother Daniel and I would play on the hospital floor with my toys while my father was talking with Ron, and I was 5 years old. This is 1968. I told Oliver Stone that. He looked at me like I had 3 heads, and he was like, "You're in the movie." I took him to my hometown. I took him to Ron's childhood home, introduced him to the neighbors. I took him to the high school. I introduced him to his teachers and coaches, Oliver and Cruz. I took him to the local hotspots, the burger place, the local diner, the local hotspot for a banana split, places where Ron used to go drink and get in trouble when he was in high school. I took him to all the places so they could do the proper research to prepare.
When it comes to acting, is there any competition between you and your siblings, or you always support each other?
Yes and no. There's no competition really in Hollywood, but we drive each other crazy and we want to kill each other sometimes. You know, it's like Irish families are weird. When I tell my Jewish friends like something I had a fight with one of my brothers, they're like, "Oh, they look at each other like, I would never say something like that to my brother or my sister." And then when I tell my Italian friends, they're like, "Oh yeah, that happened just yesterday. We had a fight, we got upset, we started screaming at each other. My brother threw a punch at me, I threw him over the table, he landed on the couch. And the next day, we saw each other the next day. We gave each other a dirty look, and then he made me laugh, and then I hugged him, and then we both hugged, and we said we loved each other." With Irish and Italian, with Jewish and Italian, different than Irish. Irish, you look at each other the wrong way, probably like people in the Balkans. You look at each other the wrong way, and all of those things that have been bothering you for the last year, it's like final. Like, I don't even want to be in the same room with you for a year. Like, if I'm in the same room with you, it's only because I want to like punch you in the head. Yeah.
Okay, so one last question. What are your next projects that you're working on, except the new movie you're shooting now?
We're in a strike, so it's sort of uncertain. I had a year that I took off when one of my children was sick, and then the next year was COVID. The next 2 years was COVID, and now we're in the strike, so there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm developing a lot of cool projects that I'm taking to network, cable, and streamers. I'm going to do some very, very cool projects, if I can sell them. I've sold projects to television before. But beyond that, I worked on some films in Rome. They want me to come back. I worked on a film in Bangkok. They want me to come back and do another film. I shot a film in Sacramento. We haven't finished yet. I have to go back when the strike is over and finish that. And then they have another project for me after we're done. So it looks like I'll be in business, which is nice, you know, with 3 kids that are in college. I need to keep working. So thank you so much.